Maybe you tell us the story about the beginning of your marriage.
All right. Where to begin? Well, let's go kind of to the. I need to think about it the best way. I got to tell the story right. You gotta have it right. So I think the things that stick in my mind that have made it something that is unique about us and what we've done is that we survived a lot of stuff that people don't survive in terms of relationships and marriage. I mean, it's hard to believe that anybody would have given us one chance in hell that have ever gotten to be the point where we even probably got a year in, before we're so young, okay. But I found somebody that turned me on, and well, you got to have part of that. You can't get it without that, And it was smart, and you know, just all the stuff that I found that I wanted, And what do you know? I mean, it's one of those things a person could overthink as time goes by. Oh well, the longer you go, the pickier you might get. Well, we didn't get to that point. We just said, oh, okay, well, this works for me, and so here we are in that regard. Of course, we didn't quite expect it to turn out as quickly and the way it went, but that's life. And so when your dad proceeded to accept this, which is like, really? I mean, you talk about a shotgun wedding. I'm glad he didn't have one. He probably would have shot me. But the amazing thing is that they stuck by it, and supported us and let her get in that Dodge Dart and roll away from Pittsfield and take off. And at the time, I don't think that I thought it was what it was. I knew that we were off on some crazy adventure that I was all in on. I said, when we stood up at St. Mary's and I said I do, I did. That was, I believed that. And so people hit things over time, though, that, things change. And we still survive those. So it's part of our miracle, if you want to say it that way. It's through thick and thin, and better and worse, and all those things. We have what we have, and finding out that you have brain cancer just kind of puts an exclamation point on top of things, saying, we knew these were important things, and now I get to see them in a fresh light that reminds me of how great it is that we've been us. So, kind of in a nutshell, that's the deal. That's the way it feels.
Deal.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
So even though I can be a shit sometimes, and anal retentive and all those other things, you help set that off with a little crazy sometimes. So. You need balance, so yeah.
So stipulate.
Yeah, so that there's a lot of other details you can put around what happened in the day in Pittsfield, but I think the important ones are the outcome, and that you stuck with me, and I stuck with you, and we got good support along the way. Where I'm telling you, I don't think 10% would ever got what we got from your mom and dad. I mean, it's just hard to imagine seeing the same situation, thinking, "Holy cow!" That they stuck in there and supported us, and allowed it to run its course and give it just a nudge here and there, and it was, and we all got different things. My mom and dad gave me help in different ways. It was, here's our location, here's a spot, here's that grounding that we had to do that. It all came together to make it what it is, and so got you, and holy cow! So, yep, so happy together. Not all the time, but don't be idyllic about this. There are times, but for God's sakes, of course, those who overcome it or even survive it sometimes is what it takes to get there. I think. Excuse me for a second.
Were there any times that you feel comfortable talking about that were particularly rough patches? Because, I always thought you guys did a great job of keeping your issues or your business, your whatever conflict that arises during marriage and relationships, doing a really great job keeping that between yourselves. Not in a way that put on any airs about we're a perfect family and we don't have problems, but I never remember growing up feeling. I only remember you yelling at Lori, but I think Nick maybe did one or two things, but I don't know. I mean, were there any episodes that stand out in your memory from a marriage perspective that?
I can't remember the specifics, but I do remember a few times where it's like, we're really going to do this, It's like, I don't know. I think it's the thing that they could be turning points for people who they didn't turn out to be turning points for us. I think one of the things that came back to me whenever we hit a few of those was that, no, I'm not leaving. I'm not the one that's going to quit, And that leads you to a mindset of saying, okay, then I'm going to stick this out. And so that means there's going to be periods where we're going to talk to each other, but we're not quitting. It's just like you find a way around that. And it over time, it kind of changes the way you handle things sometimes. I mean, you decide, okay, these are topics I think that we just need to stay away from. And I think that's detrimental sometimes, but also, when the things that piss you off or push you away from things, you say, okay, let's just stay away from those. And so it's a little bit of head in the sand syndrome, but on the other hand, you have to kind of figure out what works for you. And if you know you got something that these are not going to ever quite resolve themselves in an easy sort of way, then you have choices. Either you accept it or you don't. And so you accept it in some way of either saying, I'm going to accept it by just staying away from it and let you have your space on that. And I'll have my opinion, and we don't butt our heads against it. So that's one way of doing it. And I imagine that's probably the general way that we've handled those kinds of things. That, okay, we're very different in most ways, and which is maybe an asset, or maybe not. Sometimes it's not easy to do that. So we handle things differently, and we do things, and so when those things come up, they can be difficult to work through. So you're saying, you're going to do what? And part of getting a little older is you say, okay, sort of. I mean, that's kind of what happens. And it's part of saying, okay, so maybe nights aren't always wrong, but something like that too.
Always wrong.
There might be a little bit of aphasia just there.
Yeah.
Maybe that was an accidental Freudian
Snuck
slip
that
there.
one right in there.
We're not always wrong.
Yeah, that one slipped in. Yeah, but anyway, it's. I know that over the years, we had collision courses over things, so you just have to find a way around them or through them, or give up. And We didn't give up. It's bottom line. And it's paid us in spades, it's been a thing that wouldn't have been any different. But a lot of, you never quite know in these things, The thing we know is that we stuck with it, and that here we are now. And I'm glad it's the way it is.
Me too.
I mean, I can remember that it wasn't in the same vein, but part of that growing up process, when you start at the age we were, involves things that you would typically have encountered and dealt with in your 40s or in your 20s and 30s, maybe, that we were already past in terms of age of children, but we hadn't passed in the age of maturing, if you will. And so I can remember a period of time, and you were aware of it. I had some issues with a little bit of depression or something, just struggling with life, like, what does this mean? And it took a while to get around some of that. We talked about that a lot. It's like, where does religion play? Because I grew up in a religion environment, and it took quite a while for me to reach the conclusions that I finally have gotten to with all those things. And I feel comfortable with them now, but it wasn't a comfortable experience going through it. But I'm glad I did. I mean, people don't do that either. They'll just decide to fail on the side of safe, take a safe approach. And so it's another piece that you kind of work through, and then you finally get there and you say, well, okay, I'm good with this now. And it took a while. Next.
I think the thing you said about the youthfulness of your beginning, we were talking a little bit about family mythology yesterday. And
yeah.
We made light of the knights are always right as a part of our family mythology, which is a funny thing to poke fun at. And I think that all of us have had the experience that whenever our friends and peers meet you, they become admirers of yours also. So that's automatically part of it. And then this other family mythology thing of like, by the way, they also began their family in like impossible circumstances. So there's just this other element to it that seems so unlikely.
Yeah, it is. It is an unlikely thing, and great,
Yeah.
And basic principles like just being stubborn as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of all the things you do, I think persistence is still right at the top of the heap of
Perseverance.
perseverance.
Doesn't really take any talent.
You gotta stay at it. You gotta stay at it. You believe in it enough to stay at it, and that's a big deal. Need an Edsel story to throw in the middle of this.
Yeah. Well, no bar. That how one of his finished.
Yeah.
The nursing home.